Hello everyone, this is Matt Marzillo and welcome to a video I'm recording here for beginner Microsoft Word functionality. You can see here I have a list of 7 different bullet points of the types of things or the functionality that we're going to be going over in this video. Shouldn't take much longer than 6 minutes, I would say tops. While this is a video that will be watched in the first week or two of the course, it's my assumption that most of you or all of you have used Microsoft Word at one time or another. So going over different things like how to create a new document or print a new document or things like that is probably not the best use of our time. So I'm going to dive right into some functionality that I think might be new to you, or if it's not new to you, it's probably worthwhile getting reinforced. And I'm calling it sort of beginner to intermediate Microsoft Word functionality. So we're going to be going over templates, how to create a template for Microsoft Word, headers and footers, or really just headers, since that's typically what I've only used in my professional life, page numbering, including different types of objects and modifying those objects in Microsoft Word, things like tables, pictures, graphs, and also including text box or a text box in a Microsoft Word document, something that's used quite a bit. It's sort of a good thing to have in your tool belt. There's also a few other quick hit sort of tips that I've used and I've had a lot of success using in my life, so I'll share those with you in this video right here. So first of all, important to note that I'm running on Microsoft Word 2013 right now. Pretty much, anything 2011, 2013, it's going to give you the same feel. There really shouldn't be many large differences between what I'm doing in this video and what you might be doing in Microsoft Word 2011. If you do come across anything that seems significantly different, please shoot me an email, give me a call, and we can definitely kind of work through any issues that you might be experiencing. But with that, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to start with is templates, and I note here that in other versions of Microsoft Word, there is a logo up here in the top left corner that you'll click on instead of clicking on the File tab. But in this instance, we're going to click on the File tab, click New, and then you have a list of different templates that you can pick from in Microsoft Word. Additionally, you can use this search bar right here to search the web for different types of templates that exist out there, or that Microsoft has hosted. So let's say you wanted to search for a memo. You have probably more memo templates than you'll ever need. You can certainly click on one of them and open up a memo document and use that to kind of give you a head start on putting together a memo and give it a real professional look to it. For this video, we're going to look at cover letters. So I type in cover letter, click search, and we have many cover letters to pick from. If you haven't yet created a cover letter, I would highly recommend using a cover letter from Microsoft Word. That's what I use. That's what most others that I know use. You really can't go wrong with it. Sort of a really safe bet for a cover letter is using a template in Microsoft Word. So this one right here looks pretty basic. We'll go with that. So you click on it, you click Create. You have to give it a couple seconds, or that was actually really quick, to open up your template. So right here you can see, and this is the case with most templates in Microsoft Word, is that you have a series of different text boxes that you can plop your information into, right? So you'd start by typing your name into the Your Name field, and on down the road. You could simply click Tab or click on the text box itself and kind of run through all the different options you have to populate. So scrolling down, you can see there are some fields that you'll have to populate within the actual body of the letter, but nothing really too complicated. Makes your life a lot easier. So that's about it for templates, the most important thing is knowing where to go to get them. Like I said, it'll just be simply saying File, New, and you'll have many different templates, more than you'll ever need, and you can kind of pick from those to kind of get yourself started with certain projects or reports. Next, we can look at headers and footers. So the most common way, and the way that I typically add a header, is just by simply going to Insert. You run over here, click on the drop down header, and you have several different header options to pick from. Generally, I keep it pretty basic, and I pick either this top one here, which is a simple header in the top left, or this header down here. We have 3 separate options. This top one here is great for homework assignments, right? You just type in your name, section number, class, date. Nothing too complicated there. But for this example, let's use this header right here with 3 different columns. And you can see right now you're kind of moved out of the body of the actual document, and you're looking at the header, right? So let's say, common things that you put in a header are things like the author of the document. Maybe you're going to put the date, maybe a page number, right? So let's start by typing in name. So we'll say Matt here. Let's say right here you want to go with the current date and time. So we have an option up here in the ribbon where we can just simply plop down the date. And you can also see when I was in that previous option there, let's go back. You have this option to update it automatically, right? So that when you say this is a document you're working on over the course of a couple weeks or a couple days, if you were to click on this radio button here, it would update every day that you open it back up, right? So that it's not showing an older date when it takes you several days to polish it off. Just a nice little feature here that Word offers. So we're going to go with this format of a date. And lastly, you have, I think I want to put a page number in here, right? So you can go up to page number, and the way the page number functionality works in Word is that you can kind of put it wherever you want to, but I already have a position marked out for the page number, so I'm just going to put it in the current position. So right there you go. So we've simply kind of worked with the header here. I got the author's name, the date, and the number, and then if you want to go back into the body of the actual document, really easy, double click, and you're kind of back to doing your thing. Nothing too complicated there with headers and footers. Next, I want to start getting into like how to add objects into Microsoft Word, right? So I'm going to create a new document, just a new blank document. And one common feature that I use a lot is inserting tables into Microsoft Word documents. I always recommend, whether you're producing a report or you're producing something that's more analytical in nature, try to use words, try to use sentences, right? That's the way people want to take things in. They don't want to just look at a document that consists of numbers. But sometimes you have to, right? Sometimes there's no better way to get your information across, and you have to plop a table down in the middle of a Microsoft Word document. So really easy way to do that is just by clicking Insert. And then on this Insert ribbon, you have a table button, and you click on that table button, and it's got this really cool little interface here where you can select a number of rows and columns, and it updates the table right there in front of your face for you. So first glance, there's a very big problem here. It's like, wait a second, well, let's say I want to have 15 rows and 5 columns. 5 rows and 15 columns. That's not an option here. Really simple. You go to Insert Table. You would type in 15 columns. You can go ahead and push it up to 5 rows. And there you go. You have your table there with 15 columns and 5 rows. Simple as that. You have a number of different options that you can toggle around with in terms of design elements, like the design of it. You can play around with the shading. Actually, I just have one cell selected there, so I'll select the entire table. And you can play around with the shading if you want a blue background or something like that. I would personally, I'd recommend with just kind of leaving it alone. There's no need to go too crazy with different types of shading and design elements. Simple is better. Oftentimes, the most important thing that you're putting in this table is the actual content. So taking away from that maybe isn't always the most important thing to do, especially right up front, right when you're just kind of getting used to learning how to use tables. Once you get more comfortable, playing around with these different sort of design elements is a little bit more fun and maybe a little bit more powerful. So with that, we're gonna leave it as is. You have another tab up here for layout, right? And you can make different changes to the actual physical structure of the table. You can insert rows and columns. You can also do different things like maybe changing the direction of your text for whatever reason if you wanted to make it, horizontal or vertical or something like that. There are some data buttons here, which I would recommend just leaving alone. We're gonna get into Microsoft Excel a bunch in this class, and you're gonna do most of this stuff in Excel and then bring it back into Word when you're done. So I wouldn't even bother with those buttons in Microsoft Word. Additionally, if you are going to make changes to the number of rows and columns, rather than using these buttons up here, I would suggest just doing it right to the table here. It's a little more intuitive, a little more user-friendly. You can click on a specific row, and then you right-click. So I'll do that again. You left-click right here, and then you right-click, and you can insert some rows, right? So let's say you want to insert a new row of data. You can just simply say insert rows above or below. It's blank right now, so it doesn't make a difference. But if there were some data in here, it might matter to you. So you insert rows, and now boom, we have 6 different rows of data here rather than the 5 that we started off with. So nothing really too complicated, pretty simple. Like over the years, Microsoft Word has made it more intuitive, more user-friendly for everyone to use. So tables are very powerful at times. Another relatively new addition that Microsoft Word has added is it's called Smart Art, and essentially, let's go right here. It's a couple different options for presenting structural data in a more kind of easy to understand way. You can see here along the left side, you have lists. Hierarchies are something that I've used a ton. Right? Let's say you're sort of working on a project and you want to kind of clearly show what tasks roll up into what projects that roll up into what programs. You can kind of really clearly lay that out, and you can have a lot of fun with this sort of stuff. Pyramids, things like that. Let's just click on something kind of simple, table hierarchy. And I'm not going to get into all the specifics of what you can do here, but there's always options to insert different objects and play around with the actual layout of the hierarchy. I would always recommend, when you are playing around with the Smart Art, is to right click on it and see what you can do. Same as with the tables. You can always go back, change the layout, and say, hey, wait, I didn't really think, I wasn't really trying to do a hierarchy there. I really wanted a list. It's not a hierarchy. It's a list that I was looking for in a kind of a more kind of straightforward format. Let's go with this right here. This looks better. Okay, that's what I wanted. And you can kind of list out certain things, and it looks a little bit better than just doing simple bullet points. So that's how to use Smart Art. Additionally, when you are starting to place objects into a Microsoft Word document, it tends to clutter up the page a little bit. And oftentimes what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to break up these objects. And a very easy way to do that is by clicking on, so you want to click in the document where you want to break it. So like you see the cursor going right there below the table but before the Smart Art. You click Insert, Page Break. And now you can see what happened here is it bumped the Smart Art down onto the second page, and the table remains up here on page 1. Really simple, right? Nothing complicated there. I'm sure many of you have used that before in the past. Now, another way of doing this, and I'm going to undo what I previously did, is that sometimes you have an object that would be better suited for a landscape design, right? So right now we have the sort of the vertical page layout, or here in orientation, we're in the portrait orientation, but maybe we want to use landscape. And if you click landscape, well, it converts the entire document to landscape. We don't want that. We just want one page to be landscape design. And there's a pretty cool way of doing that. And it's not a page break. It's something a little bit different. So you'd go to page layout, you'd go to breaks, and you'd go to a section break called next page. Okay, so now this is looking the same as what we just did before, right? Not anything terribly different. But once you're on the next section here, you can flip the orientation for just that section, right? So if I click landscape here, you're going to notice that page 2 has converted to a landscape design, but page 1 remains in the portrait, right? So this is really powerful when you're producing a report that contains words and sentences along with tables and images, right? So you can kind of create space for everything that you need to create. Something that I use a lot, and I would recommend you using a lot. You can probably impress some people when you're kind of entering the professional world. Not a lot of people know about doing that, so I would say maybe keep that one in your tool belt for future use. Okay, I'm going to go back to my original document here and see what else I haven't touched on. We have templates, we have headers and footers, we have the page numbering, we have including objects and graphs, modifying those. Oh, text box, that's an important one too. So the last thing here that we'll touch on are how to insert a text box. So we are back onto our document that includes a blank table, and let's say maybe you have some text and it's taking up some room, but you want to kind of put something off to the side that maybe is sort of a caption or something like that. A real convenient way of doing that is by inserting something called a text box. So if you go up to the tab, the Insert tab, and you head over to Text Box, use the Simple Text Box feature, and it just drops a text box here for you, and you can play around with the size of it. It kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how it's aligned with the text already in the document. You can move it around. Really a lot of flexibility here, and you can type whatever you want into the text box. And a lot of times what you're doing here is you're using it for emphasis, right? You're trying to draw the reader's attention to something by kind of putting something putting a text box in the document that doesn't quite fit in with the rest of it. So when you click off of it, you can see, hey, I have a border there. Maybe I don't want that. I don't want that black line around the text box. It looks kind of silly. I just kind of want some words sort of kind of floating around. And a really easy way to do that is just by going to Shape. Make sure you're on the text box, and then go to Shape Outline, and go No Outline. And this way, you can you just have some text that's kind of just floating out there, which is kind of good when you want to maybe just drop it, next to or around something. Really, really good, interesting stuff. Oftentimes, you use it maybe in conjunction with an object like an arrow, right? So maybe you want to insert something. So you would go to the insert tab, and then you would insert a shape, and you drop an arrow in here, right? So you can just kind of easily kind of just dump a, oh, let me redo that. Let's go to insert, shape, arrow. So you can really say, hey, look over here. We want you to pay attention to that. So you kind of use the text box in conjunction with the shape. Kind of add a little more flavor to your report or to your the document that you're putting together. So that's all I have for you right now. If you have any other specific questions, feel free to email me or give me a call. Like I said, really sort of beginning, maybe going on intermediate Microsoft Word functionality. But all the things that I'm showing you are useful. I promise you, they are things that are used regularly in the real world, and you will use them in your professional career. So feel free to tinker around with some of the things I've showed you, and have fun with it. Thanks a lot.